Welcome to my Dear Kitchen in Helsinki podcast. My guest today is designer Heidi Uppa, who has been working with food for a very long time and who is also conducting her doctoral research in Aalto University. Heidi and I talked about what critical food design means and how she uses design with and about food to create a positive change in the world. Hope you enjoy. Okay. Hi, Heidi. How are you?
Hello. Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you for inviting me to have this discussion with you.
Well, thank you for coming. I'm super excited to have invited a fellow designer and bring in a new point of view because so far I mostly interviewed academics, and this is also interesting with you. You are also, working on your doctoral research, but also you're working as an independent designer. So you have two point of view in one. That's why I wanted to put you now as my guest. But before we start, can you briefly talk about your academic background and especially your work in relation to food?
Okay, well, this is a little bit kind of complicated question for me because it's a bit blurry all the time. But basically what I'm doing, I'm a designer and I'm quite like specialized in food and concept design particularly maybe. And I mean, why? That's maybe just because I'm interested in those. That's why somehow there's something like that I'm passionate about food and also like concept design. And then
have you always been interested in food, or did it come at some point during your design work?
I don't know. I haven't done like really like a deep reflection on that, or I have never really thought of it that much. I mean, I have always enjoyed food and like been interested in it, but not. I mean, I have done other works also and worked in other contexts in design. It's not that I have only been working with food, but many. I mean, I've been working a lot with branding and visual identities and packaging design, and well, also service design and things like that. So often, like packaging design is related to food, at least in the way that I have done it. And many identities that I have designed have been related to food and or brands. So it's, I mean, it has been part of the practice kind of for a long time, maybe like something like 20 years by now. But then, I mean, maybe it was my MA thesis was about packaging design and more about the semiotics of the packaging. And while I was doing that, I became more and more interested in not just the packaging, but what is also like inside the package. And like the relationship between the product and the package, and how it like creates only like, I mean, they cannot be separated actually, at least in people's like minds. So that's kind of interesting, like idea from the design perspective. And and I mean, I never really planned to do anything or become academic. It's just things just have somehow moved towards that, so to say. So I mean, I'm kind of curious to also, I mean, always learn new things and find out more details and go like do background research. That's usually, I mean, has been like my favorite part of the project, like when starting a new project, to get into it and trying to make sense out of everything around it.
Yeah.
To be able to visualize something related to it and summarize and visualize. So so, and then of course, like I do quite a bit of teaching and research also nowadays. And that kind of allows then to like involve more perspectives around that. So it's, yeah, and then combine actually like things in an interesting way, because I mean it's not such like a conscious choice, but I'm in a way I'm quite happy about the current situation, that it allows me to do different type of things, and I don't have to just live in one box.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, it's also difficult sometimes, like, because if there are too many things on the table at the same time all the time, and like you feel that you never have really time properly to focus on any of these things. So in that way, it's also challenging to I mean, I need to also become better in in time management, like all the time, find better ways to be able to focus on the things that I'm doing, like specific things. But yeah, but it's still, I'm quite happy about this opportunity that it allows me to like explore different approaches.
Yeah. So I want to now dive right into the term food design and also critical food design. So I'm personally very familiar with that. I also talked a lot about it in my master's thesis many years ago. But even then, it was very new, it was quite new and not easily understood. So, and for our listeners who are mostly probably not working with design or food, can you explain what food design is, or what critical food design especially means?
Well, to make it really like summarize it like in an easy way, I mean, food design is an area where food and design come together. So it's not more complicated than that. But I mean, it can mean like designing experiences, products, services, brands, concepts like related to food. And I mean, it's maybe sometimes people like understand it in a way that, okay, chefs are food designers as well. I mean, in a way they create and design like recipes and things like that. But in the context of design, like food design is also like something new and something else. And it's not, I mean, it's quite new field in a context of design. So there is no like a ultimate final definition on what is it, because we are still exploring and all the time discovering new things. And when it comes to critical design, I suppose that's like current topic in general in the field of design. And I mean, critical thinking and this like a reflective approach. So it's quite essential in design nowadays. And it allows, like, without the reflections and being reflective, I mean, how can we learn about anything what we are doing? I mean, we just keep doing what we are doing and without thinking much. So we need this reflective approach to be able to do things in a smarter way and in a better way, and use our resources in a more smarter way, and like that. And research can provide like better methods for us, more efficient ways to do things. So yeah.
So more and more designers for a long time already have been working on using design to change the world for better, let's say. So how do you think for you design, especially using food or around food, can be a tool to create positive change, but also please explain what, for example, would positive change would mean for you?
Well, I guess as a humanity and in a larger scale, we need to like try to go towards more sustainable like systems and more sustainable food systems. And I mean, it hasn't been the best way. I mean, it's not the best way how things work currently. I mean, we can clearly see it. We are destroying like our planet because we just like there are multiple different reasons for that, and we are all pretty much like, or at least most of us are aware of that. So we need to do things in a smarter way. and try to change things and and challenge the current ways of doing. So basically then like everybody is interested in and excited about change, but then how to do it, it's quite difficult to actually get into the change in the way that you actually get results. And then I mean it's quite easy to always like look at other people that, hey, why don't that person change, or why don't that company change, or why don't they change? And it's at the same time when we talk about change, we need to remember that we can't like assume that other people are just doing it. We need to also focus on ourselves and change. And I mean the change basically starts like inside ourselves. We need to change ourselves first to be able to change anything in the world, and this is kind of important to understand. And so like self-reflective approach, and and the change can happen in many levels, and it should happen on many levels. So and then to be able to get into positive like change and positive impacts. So and maybe the first part of that change is to become aware of the current situation and what's there now. Become aware of yourself and for example your own feelings, and that's not an easy thing at all. That requires quite a lot of awareness, and we are so we so easily also fool ourselves with this. That but at the same time we need to work on many levels, like self, but also like a community, and then the whole global level, and understand the differences, and so that kind of leads into like looking at the systemic levels also, and systemic change. But we can't expect any systemic changes to happen if we are not ready to change things in ourselves and in our own lives also. We need to kind of try to be examples and test things in a smaller scale first, maybe, before they can become like a bigger things. And then when there are a lot of these smaller like streams first happening, then they can kind of grow into rivers and oceans. But first we need to start the change in ourselves. And of course this is related to planetary well-being and as well as people's well-being, and all of these are linked together. And of course it's also related to our like economics and like capitalistic ideas about economic growth. We need to challenge those ideas and try to provide something better, and those questions are not easy. They are like extremely complex, and there are different interests, like depending on from who you ask, and so it's not that we can just do it like that, even though we maybe would like to get into that, but it's not easy, it's not simple. And like food is really, I think, interesting like a area and a topic, because it somehow combines people in a very natural way, and it's part of us. We every day we need to kind of eat something, and then while we eat, then food essentially like it becomes really like literally like part of us. Also like physically, but not only physically, also identity wise, like so it's really like fascinating like area, and also this the trust that we create between like people and different stakeholders in the food system through these activities which happen through food. It's really fascinating.
But speaking of this kind of creating positive change, but also communities, I want to go right into one of your projects that were very interesting, and it started as a pilot project, but it now grew. But I want to first talk about the pilot project itself, which is Keru Community Fridge project. First of all, can you just briefly explain what it was about?
Yeah, you mean the whole project, or?
Yes, the pilot project. I mean,
Okay.
how did it start?
Okay.
Especially, I'm curious as a designer how it started for you, like how the process started, and also what the pilot project is about. Just to explain.
Okay, so basically, I mean, there's quite a lot of happy accidents there on the way. Basically, I was doing, like some years ago, I was doing some food design course for Aalto masters, like students, and I needed, I mean, we wanted to do like a dumpster diving excursion with the students, and I mean, just to learn about food waste, to explore that part like a little bit. And then I met Tuomas Lilleberg like through that project, because he was able to help me to actually like make this dumpster diving excursion to happen. And then after that we kind of continued the discussion with Tuomas, and like collected other people and organized food waste carnival as it was just a one-day event as a part of the Helsinki day, like was it 2017 or something like that. In Pasila, they have this community house in Pasila, so that's where we organized it. And I mean, it was a interesting, successful like a day. There was a lot of different activities, like we were serving more than 200 portions of food prepared from surplus ingredients, and there was a photo exhibition and film screening and other small activities around food waste, like just to create awareness on the topic. And also like a panel discussion where we invited different like professionals from, covering different aspects of the topic, and that was like a good as such. But then we were thinking like, okay, it would be interesting to have to create something which would have more long-term like a impact. And so then we continued like a discussion on this, and we're thinking of different different possibilities and different project ideas. And there were basically 4 people in the participating in these discussions. Maja Ilievskaja and Mari Salster were also part of that. And then we came up with this after some doing some research and familiarizing ourselves more with the food waste topic. So then we ended up in this into this a community fridge idea, and then decided that okay, this might be worth exploring more and testing how it works. And then we were figuring it out, okay, where should we do it and how should it work. And I was of course quite interested in involving design perspectives and design and communication perspectives into the project. So basically then we created all the necessary materials and founded funding. Helsinki City was basically in the beginning funding that project. Not that we needed a lot of money for it, but still we needed to get some furniture and little pieces of materials and this and that. So and then we launched the pilot project 2 years ago in Kallio.
And
that was basically a project which then came to be because I think all of us were quite frustrated about the situation and wanted to desperately do something, but didn't really know what to do and what would be the best way. And then it was just in the end okay, deciding that okay, let's at least try something out. We didn't know if it would work, or what problems there might be, or what would happen, but then just decided to take the risk and test the idea. I mean, we knew that there are like few similar type of projects like which have been like done in the world, like in UK and India and stuff like that. But it was not so clearly, when we started to like look at them in the detail, it was not so clearly explained, like, okay, how it actually worked and how it could be applied into Finnish context, because we have some challenges. We can't just put a fridge on the street because of the Finnish winter and things like that. So yeah. So we needed to just test it and see what happens.
And so people started to bring their otherwise would be waste food to this fridge. And how did it work exactly?
Yeah, basically, community fridge is a recycling, like a point for surplus food. Mm-hmm. And everybody is welcome. People can either collect food from there or they can donate food. Mm-hmm. And in this pilot project, we also collected every day like surplus food from the nearby shops. Mm-hmm. to be able to like have more stuff on the shelves. Because if the shelves are all the time empty, then not many people are interested in like coming there often if there isn't nothing to really share. So just to have a bit more volume there, we created this like a system of doing like a daily pickups. And it was actually quite like a difficult thing to do. And eventually we ended up having like, the pilot continued for 17 months. And we had something like 72 volunteers participating in the project. So it was quite, difficult task to manage the whole process and all that. And of course, we needed to also take care of the cleaning and food safety, which is a big also like a issue with this, because basically the food that we were sharing, it's in the end of its life cycle. So there's also like this, always risk that, okay, what if somebody gets like sick or something, and we didn't want that to happen. So therefore we needed to also like focus on training people and educating them on the topic. And there are also Finnish like laws which we need to, on food safety, which we had to take into account and make sure that everybody follows those. And that's not so easy task.
And I'm also going to, wherever I can, I'll put the link to this pilot project where people can also see more details about how it worked. But I know that you also had some extra activities. It was not just one fridge. Of course, it's not just a fridge, but but you also had activities and workshops. I see in the website around that idea. And I'm curious. I'm always curious in who participates in this, like whether you're volunteers, but also your the people who visit or who become part of the activities and part of the who benefit from this fridge itself. Do you have any information? You might not have any formal information on that or data, but do you have any idea who were these people, like gender or some age group, or Finnish, foreigner? Do you have any idea about the participants, in that sense?
Yeah, one very important aspect of the project was this like a community part and social part of the project, which is maybe often we think that, okay, we just need to solve somehow the logistics of the food waste or something so that the problem is solved, but it's not really that. We need to also put a lot of attention on the social aspect, because and that's the most difficult part, because we can't predict so well how people will behave, or so involving people it's difficult. And so basically with this, we organize different events. also to our volunteers and participants, but sometimes they also were open for all visitors. And by doing that, we wanted them to, like, also people who were not yet maybe part of or familiar with the place, to kind of feel that okay, they could maybe like feel more like interested in just coming to visit casually and see the place, because it's also, there's a lot of social stigma around like food waste, because typically in Finland a lot of the food waste or surplus food is shared as a food aid, and then it's there is this kind of thought that okay, this surplus food is only for poor people, and this was something what we consciously needed to kind of clarify in the communication, that okay, this is for everybody, it's really everybody is welcome, you don't have to be poor to like collect some food from here. The main thing is that the food will go into the use and will be eaten. That doesn't really matter who actually eats it. And it's actually interesting that that in the higher like income groups, when people have more money to buy food, then they also tend to throw away more food, which doesn't really make any sense. You're basically throwing away money, like when you are throwing away food. So we need to not only try to like change the behavior of the poor people, but I mean really this all involves like everybody. And also knowing that okay, the households are the most challenging part of the food chain to change the behavior, and they also create the biggest amount of waste compared as a comparison to industry or other parts of the food chain. So yeah, this is the challenge, and we wanted to target that, which then means like okay, the actual target group is quite wide. And then the location in the Kalliola settlement house, like okay, there's in the same building there are offices for different like organizations, and then so of course those people were already like visiting because they were already kind of in the building. But then on top of that, also like just people from the neighborhood mostly. I mean, sometimes people from other parts of the Helsinki came too, and sometimes some tourists were visiting and just they were curious about the place and wanted to, they had heard of it, like heard about it in somewhere, so they wanted to come to see how it is. And I mean, some people were unemployed, some people were students, but some people were just like normal regular people, like on the way there to their work or something. So, and we didn't really like consciously also ask like okay, what is your social status or something, because I mean we wanted to actually avoid it. But sometimes I mean I at least noticed myself that people like maybe it's this like an interesting like a role that food has, like that okay, when the food is present, even if it's not like really being eaten, but just the presence of food creates this kind of interesting feeling of trust. And I have had often interesting discussions with people, like when I was doing something at the fridge, at the community fridge, because people wanted to share like their things about their lives, and like they were telling like a lot of details about their lives and their current situation, and I mean they're about their families and things like this, which was really nice. Like
yeah, I mean food really opens up this kind of personal, it makes it easier, breaks the ice, makes it easier to talk about yourself and your stories, and it's a very good tool for that. But
and also we had a lot of foreigners like visiting. I mean maybe if I think of our volunteers, like maybe half of them were Finnish and half of them were foreigners. And I was thinking, okay, maybe that is because like maybe it's not so easy for foreigners to get like find new circles if they move to a new place. It's not so easy to get to know people, and I mean this was a way of socializing also. And other thing which is quite interesting, like when related to like food, that I mean in my other projects I often like notice that there are a lot more foreigners are kind of interested in different food related projects than actually Finns, and that's quite interesting. Like we can raise this question that, okay, what does this tell about Finnish food culture? I mean, like is it just like maybe we just take it as a granted, we don't really do we appreciate like in Finland like food enough, or I mean is it just understood as a something to fill the stomachs, or do we really like understand the value of it? It's quite interesting to think about it in that way too. So and also I mean still going back to the people who visited at the fridge, like then we had also this like a questionnaire for the visitors that they could give feedback, and then we were asking there like, okay, like what are the reasons like behind like why you are interested in visiting, and like then people mentioned that, okay, like 90% of the people, like I mean this is a rough number, that they mentioned both like these like climate and ecological like reasons related to reducing food waste, like I mean and not only this like a aspect of like a saving money or receiving free food. I mean it was basically equally important to them.
But so with these surveys, any of them, or not within the survey, but just someone coming and giving feedback to you about, you also said yourself before about this change of behaviors. So did you get any this kind of comment from anyone that said, by using this, I mean, maybe I wasn't aware of this before, but by being part of this, this in my life changed. It could be about change of purchasing food, or it will be anything that involves a more sustainable lifestyle. Did this kind of become an inspiration for even bigger change in their own lives?
Yeah, I think it was happening quite often that people were commenting that, oh, I never actually thought of this, but like seeing this and like made me kind of realize that maybe this is an important like a topic, and okay, we need to do something. And it has, I mean, often people were commenting that it made them think about their own like practices in how they like cook at home, and how they like what kind of decisions they make in the shop and all that. And maybe it was also because we were sharing some information at the fridge, like tips for like a circular economy, how you can apply that like into use in your own kitchen and things like that, or recipe ideas or things like that. So I mean maybe it would have been useful to even highlight it more in the communication, but then I mean that's always also then the question of resources, and time is limited. So,
and also I think maybe it's good to leave some space for people, just to activate them, give them a bit of the information, inspire them, and then this leads them to go and find out more about it.
Yeah, you can't also like actively just like push it against their faces. Like you need to leave some like space to explore and
when they do this,
and for the realizations to happen.
When they do this exploration, also some things that they do themselves, the information or the knowledge that they reach themselves, maybe even more long-term staying with them, actually. So in that sense, it may be good that you didn't just give everything and bombard them with all the information and whatever. So in that sense, I think it was a good balance. But this was a pilot. This was a pilot project, and already in the website there is the part, for example, that says if you want to do your own community fridge, contact us and things like that. So did you receive any requests from other communities to start their own fridge? Did anyone contact you? Do you know that at least in Finland or in Helsinki? Did it happen again without your initiation in other communities?
Yeah, this is interesting, because I think since the beginning, since we launched this like a pilot project, like people, I mean, it was like quite a lot of different newspapers and medias were like writing about it, and we got quite good visibility, and then I mean, we got some questions that, okay, like we are interested in starting this, that what could we do? And at that time, I mean, there was not so much time to actually do anything like, do much practical things. Of course, was like often like then answering the questions that people had. But now basically what I'm more focusing at the moment and working at the moment is that we have now this like a new community fridge info platform, where we want to like share materials and tools which were created during the pilot project, and then now we are looking for different groups who are interested in this kind of activity, like running a community fridge in their neighborhood, so that we could test these materials. And then by the end of this year, we will publish all these materials like in our platform, in our website. So then basically, and that will be in English and Finnish, and then we hope that it would be helpful and more easy for new groups than like in Finland, and also perhaps in other countries, to start their own community fridge projects.
And I'm going to, as I said, put the link to this to the website, at least on YouTube, but in some other platforms I cannot do that. So in case anybody wants to go and check it, the name again, Keru Community Fridge, if they just want to, Google themselves and find it. But I want to move on now to a more recent project you had in September as part of Helsinki Design Week, Value Shop. So can you just briefly explain what this one was about? What is it, a value shop?
The value shop, it's basically like a concept. And the idea there is that value shop looks like a shop. It's like a shop environment, but it's not really like a real shop where you go to like buy different products. But there are products, and basically every like product has two versions. Like there's two different labels of each product, and they the label itself is white with a black text. And the statements on each packages are related to different social and political topics, and they are like those two like statements on each product. They are from opposite ends of the spectrum, so to say. So basically, then visitors can choose which one they agree with, or what better fits into their values. So. So that's basically the idea, and then we wanted to combine this like a citizen duties and voting with consumerism and shopping experience. And this project has been a collaboration between myself and Apartuli. He's a designer specialized in product and interaction design, and we had with this project, we had a chance to combine our interests and also like skills, what we have been doing for a longer time. So that was quite exciting. And as a part of the design week, we had an opportunity to create this like a 20 square meter like a shop like space at the Helsinki Design Week main exhibition at the Olympic Stadium now in September. And it was interesting. We had in the whole exhibition there were like 4,000 visitors roughly, and we had this like a voting system there, so that each product also included had this like a QR codes, and people could like through this web-based application they could scan those codes and do the actual voting like that. So yeah, there were more like roughly 400 like a different people voting, and some people were voting together or as a family, so that recorded as a one person voting, even though there were more people involved. So, and there were also many people visiting who didn't want to participate in this interactive part, but just wanted to like look at the packages and experience the installation in that way.
You mentioned like values, for example, from opposite ends of spectrum, and what are some of the examples, and how did you also decide which ones to choose?
yeah basically the black and white labels, like we wanted
also what if were there you said opposite ends of spectrum, so maybe was there anyone who couldn't decide? Well, then what would
yeah, that's interesting, because well, basically the black and white like visually it looked really black and white, the labels, and we wanted them to look like that because then it reflects the current, I mean the polarization of the current like atmosphere in the discussions that like often happens, like either this or either this, I'm right, you are wrong type of thing. And in the real life things are not so black and white. Like when you actually go into learn more about the topic, it's actually not that easy at all. There are a lot of gray tones between, and then that's why it was sometimes difficult for people to choose, like, okay, if I should go there or there. For example, we had this licorice example with this like a racism topic about, I mean, the other option said like Black Lives Matter, and the other option said like all lives matter. So, I mean, depending how you approach it, like you can choose, like, of course it's, you have, I mean, it's maybe more interesting to think about like, than to think about, okay, like, not to think about what you choose, but why you choose it. So what are the reasons behind? And it was, I mean, it worked in a way that, okay, people were discussing the topics and they really like enjoyed that. And that was our goal. We wanted to raise awareness and discussion, like, because like that is maybe something what I feel that design should do more, and provide opportunity for reflection and thinking about these difficult topics. And
I'm curious about this one thing. When you were putting these labels on some products, and of course the labels, the values that they represent were the most important part. But when you were designing the shop itself and these products, did you think of any relation with the actual product that you have in your hand and the value that it represents or you put on?
Yeah, of course. I mean, for example, we chose this like a question about abortion and put it into the egg like packaging, which is, I mean, there is maybe interesting link there. And oranges, which has this like a round shape. The other one said that, okay, Earth is flat, and the other one said Earth is round. So it's like that. And then, for example, extra virgin olive oil was related to prostitution. So it's, I mean, there is sometimes, I mean, we managed to like make the link more related to the product, but it was not so obvious maybe with all products. I mean, and also like adding a little bit of humor there, because some of these topics are quite like heavy and hard. And for example, like this abortion question, so to like also provide something like some fun aspects there too, so that was to lighten up the like the hardness of the overall thing a bit. So that was maybe something what was needed. And because, I mean, for example, there were cases that there was mother and a daughter at the same time, like looking at the eggs, and then the daughter, like something like 10, 11 years old, was asking the mother, like, okay, what does this mean? Like, what should I choose? Like, the women have right to choose and make decisions on their own bodies, or then on the other hand, like, all like lives are equally important, or something like that. So I mean, it's quite difficult task for the mother to like explain in a simple way that, okay, what we should now like choose here, or then there was like a question of drugs, and that was together with the marshmallows, and of course all the kids were always like quite interested in the marshmallows because it looked quite delicious. And once we had like a grandmother visiting with three grandkids, and trying to explain to the kids, like, okay, if we should choose this one with more like harder punishments for the like drug related crimes, or legalizing marijuana and psychedelics, or like it's kind of like interesting.
But it's also, I mean, it's very a bold step in many for many people to just be there and to openly say, like, openly show people your opinion on something, which are, as you said, some very hard topics, and not everyone is. You might talk about these topics, your values on this topic, with some friends or people that you trust, or something, but it's not always so easy to show, hey, I believe in this, and I'm pro-life, I'm pro abortion, and things like that. So I think it's also very bold for the participants to be there and to show exactly, like, physically what they believe in.
I mean, of course, our voting system was totally like anonymous. We didn't like record any data from the people like who were voting or participating in this like an installation or interactive part of it. So but there definitely is this aspect of it, because I mean, like in this democratic system, like how we vote, I mean, there's a lot of efforts being put into this like anonymous like part of it, so that people can like freely like vote about something, and they don't have to openly tell to other people what they actually what they think about it. So this, like, when we combine these commercial aspects with this, definitely then it becomes more visible as So, and also it's quite interesting, I mean, not directly linked with this installation, but then if you would actually buy the product, what would happen? Because then you will have to take that product home, and you have to actually live with your choice.
Yes.
So it's interesting. And you might have to put the package on if it's ketchup or something, you have to put it on the table when your, I don't know, mother-in-law comes to visit. And I mean, can you still live with your choice? That's an interesting,
the next step could be something like that.
We haven't thought of the next steps yet, but I mean, there's a lot of interesting aspects with this project. We are quite excited about it, and
So, well, we don't have so much time left, but I still want to ask this one more thing, which is also kind of finalizing the interview. Apart from these two projects we talked about very detailed, you also have had many participatory workshops using food or about food. So among these works, can you choose just one that you love a lot, or you had a very interesting results, and to finalize this discussion?
Well, basically I have done different type of food related workshops, more related to maybe storytelling, and I have done those together with adults. And that's basically for me a way to collect data for my PhD research, and because I'm interested in researching different narrative methods. So that's part of that. And I and I had to do quite a lot of different like explorations to kind of get into that. And some workshops I have done with the kids also, like for example mushroom farming and creative pizza workshop for kids where they could create a pizza recipes. I mean, like young kids who don't necessarily know how to read and write yet. So how to work on that. So maybe that was like I mean, I'm as a researcher, I'm of course like very much interested in the storytelling workshops and all that, but it's also has been like really fun to work with kids and to see their excitement and all that, and this like as an overall thing, like this, the data collection in that form, it's quite a lot of fun. And I mean, for me it's just also a way to like explore like this like food design area and learn more myself as a designer and as a researcher, and I mean as a human as well.
Yeah. Any final comments before we or anything you want to say to the listeners?
I don't know, maybe just would like to encourage everyone to like just try out things which they haven't tried out before, and to challenge like their own ideas and the existing world, and sometimes like just trying out something. It doesn't matter. I mean, I have also failed many times when trying out things, or I had to try many times the same thing before I understand enough of it so that it actually starts to work. So I would like just to maybe encourage people to try out new things bravely, and not to be unhappy with themselves if they don't succeed straight away. But yeah,
I mean, every trial, I mean, every time you fail you learn a lot. So I think in the end it's never a loss of time or anything. It's making, you know, having a failure. Maybe it's even in many cases it's even nicer.
Yeah. I mean, then you get into interesting topics and questions, and in design that's, I think, really like crucially important, and we don't do maybe enough of it as designers. So because we want to be on the safe space and safe like area, but we need that if we want to do, I mean, change something like around ourselves. And the other thing is maybe like, I mean, I've been thinking a lot this like a empathy and these like more like softer, like let's say softer ways of doing, and like, I mean, there's a lot to learn there too. So
okay, well, this was very, very good. I mean, I knew I know your work. I knew your work from before, but it was also very nice to talk about them with you. So much details now, one-to-one, and I hope this inspires listeners to go and find out more, and maybe to find their own ways how to do with that. And so thank you. And
thank you.
We'll of course continue to communicate to follow your work. Yes,
and likewise. I mean, I'm excited to also hear about how your research and other projects like continue, because it's interesting for me. I also learn from that a lot, so it's this like a sharing aspect is very important as well.
Perfect. Okay, so bye.